Happy Monday. Thank you for joining me for this week's Unlocking the Magic of Leadership. Now, for this week, we are going to be talking about the difference between equality and equity. And the reason why we're talking about this is I recently attended a conference that had a very specific mission on making their experiences more equitable for customers. And they had some amazing examples. So I was at the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association and their annual conference, and they were talking about how can we make Oregon more accessible. And just a few of the examples that they gave, one was at the hotel that they worked at. They noticed that individuals were having a hard time. They didn't have washers and dryers at home. They were having to go to laundromats to wash and dry their uniforms. And so without saying a word, the leadership team put a washer and dryer in the break room. So that way, instead of spending quarters and dollars getting your washing and drying done, having to have the time, they could do it while they were at work. This was a beautiful, beautiful example of meeting your team where they are, assessing the needs, and then putting a solution to what most might not even consider a problem. Another example, there's a lot of beaches in Oregon, and they supplied the example that beaches are not equitable. If you are fully functioning and you're able to walk and move through, not a problem. If you have any type of mobility issues, sand becomes a very big problem. So they have special wheelchairs specifically for the beach that they have spread throughout the beaches of Oregon. And they have things called Moby mats to where if they didn't have the special wheelchairs, then the Moby mats allowed some movement through the beach, not the entire beach, but where the mats were, traditional wheelchairs could go. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is one, I was really inspired by all of the incredible examples that they have. But two, when we think about equity, we think about it being so big. I have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars remodeling my entire business instead of looking for these small moments. And so another example of this, I was at an organization doing some training. It was an agri-science organization, and they have a sensory room. So if you feel overwhelmed, you can go in and you can either shut down all of the sounds, the lights, all of the things, or you can customize them. And it's quiet. There's no outside sounds other than what you put into the room. So these are small examples that have a really big impact. Now, when we think about equity and equality, let's talk about the difference between those two real quick. Equality is what I was taught when I first became a leader. Equality is everybody gets the exact same thing. So if I can't do it for you, because then I would have to do it for everybody, and that's just not an option. Equity is that individuals get what they need to be most successful. And so let's say what that looks like. You've probably heard me use this example before. Let's say that we are going to do a fundraiser where we are going to ride our bikes and we are going to raise money based on the amount of laps. We have 10 individuals. Those individuals consist of family members and colleagues that we work with. On this group of 10, somebody asked if their 8-year-old can join. Sure, absolutely. The more the merrier. Somebody also asked if their para-athlete friend could join. They're in a wheelchair. Sure, more the merrier. Not a problem. Now, equality is that I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm going to find 10 bikes. I'm going to find the cheapest bike, and I'm going to buy 10 of those exact bikes. Everybody gets the exact same bike. No matter where they're at, no matter what they need for success, everybody's going to get the exact same bike. Equity. I go up to you and I say, hey, do you want to do this fundraiser? If you say yes, I'll say, okay, do you have a bike? Do you need a bike? What's going on? You let me know what it is that you need to be able to participate. I have this conversation with everybody, and then I go and find the tools that everybody needs to be successful. So for the 8-year-old, I'm going to get them a bike. They may need training wheels. They may not. We're going to have a conversation and figure it out. For the para-athlete, I'm going to find a bike that works for somebody in a wheelchair. If you are 6'5", chances are you're going to have a different bike than somebody that's 5'6". So we are meeting you where you are at and determining what resources do you need, and within reason, how can we help you get those resources? That is the difference between equality and equity. And again, some of the examples that we heard, the washer and the dryer in the break room, the Moby wheelchairs, the Moby mats and the beach wheelchairs, all of these are examples of small changes that make a huge impact. Oh, another example, that was a phenomenal example. This is in hospitality where you have a lot of frontline employees making minimum wage, if not a little bit higher. And they took their employee engagement funds And instead of doing things like monthly birthday parties, they created a cupboard to where they would have basics. So they would have milk, eggs, water, mashed potatoes, rice and beans, spaghetti, things like that, that employees could go, no questions asked, and get items that they needed. And I know when you hear this, your first initial response may be, well, what kept them from wiping out the entire cupboard? That question was asked at the conference. And the person who set it up said we never even had to put guidelines. People were respectful with it. And what was surprising was that people would take what they needed, and when they had the ability, they would put it back for others. So say I took a gallon of milk. When I got paid, I would buy a gallon of milk, put it back in the cupboard. People will surprise you if you give them the opportunity. All right, that's it for this week. We now know the difference between equality and equity, and we have a couple of real life examples of small but very impactful things that we can do to help be more equitable in our organization. Have an absolutely amazing week, and don't forget, as always, you got this. I'll see you next week.